Okay, I'm excited. I sent you guys all an email sometime last week to let you know about the topic tonight, as well as a link to the color code test, if you will. So I'm excited to be able to talk about that tonight. I did want to just kind of bring in one thought that I had just to, as a reminder from last week, even when we talked a little bit about religion. And I'll pull up my phone here. And if anybody has your scriptures and want to pull this up real quick, there's a thought I wanted to share with you, and I meant to do it last week, but kind of forgot. So, but in 3rd Nephi, chapter 26, verse 11. Is it 3rd Nephi? I think it's 3rd Nephi. Have to make sure. Chapter 26, verse 11. Let me make sure. Hopefully it's the right book I'm talking about. Yep, I remembered it right. Yay! I don't always remember scripture references, but for some reason, so I went to the temple a couple weeks ago, and while I was there, I was reading scriptures. I thought, for whatever reason, I was doing it that day. And I normally don't read scriptures a lot while I'm at the temple, but I did that day. And had a lot on my mind, as you know, we all usually do whenever we go. And so I'm there reading, and this verse stood out to me. Like, I'm probably going to remember this because I think it's now just kind of etched in my brain. So I don't know how long I'm going to remember this, because I am not really good at remembering scripture references. I'm better about remembering what I read, or reading a story, or it's somewhere in the Doctrine and Covenants, somewhere in the Book of Mormon. That's usually what I read, right? But I remember this reference. It's 3rd Nephi, chapter 26, verse 11. And this was back when Christ was teaching the Nephites. And it says, "Behold, I was about to write them, all which were engraven upon the plates of Nephi, but the Lord forbade it, saying, I will try the faith of my people." And I still get choked up kind of thinking about this because of what it meant to me. A lot of times we want to know the end from the beginning. We want to know how it's going to end up before we even start something like a relationship, right? We want to know, is this safe? Is this a chance that we can take and it's all going to end happy? Because I don't want to get hurt, right? Nobody wants to get hurt. But so I think about that in aspects of relationships, in aspects of careers, in aspects of whatever we did. The Lord could have allowed him to write everything he was teaching. The Lord could even have allowed, it was Satan's plan, right? That he wanted to come in and make sure that we made it. He wanted to be able to let us know the end from the beginning, and to, have it be safe, so that we would all get everything that we needed and wanted, so that we could all live back with Heavenly Father again, right? That was his plan. I think about that in relation to the scriptures, and to this scripture, where at the very end it says, I will try the faith of my people. How many of you have felt like your faith has been tried? How many of you feel like your faith is still being tried? Right? I know. Ooh, hands up, right? I don't know of anybody that doesn't feel that, quite honestly, as a single adult, or anybody, period. But especially as a single adult. To have our faith tried in whatever is put before us. And I'm always a big believer in that we are all in each other's lives for a reason. And we need to just help each other through on this journey, whatever our friendships or relationships are to be. And that, to me, is important, because as we think about the different people in our lives and the different aspects of the relationships that we have with them, we won't know the end from the beginning. We do need to have faith to take a step forward, to take a chance on a relationship. And you can what if yourself to death. What if this and what if that, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that it's going to happen or that it won't happen. I talk to you a lot about mindset, right? And about how we get what we believe that we deserve, or that we become who we believe, or whatever. Our mind is a powerful thing. Our heart is also very powerful. Our soul is amazing at what we can do and accomplish in this world. As a single adult in the church, we have gone through experiences that not everybody gets to go through. And you can look at that as a bad thing or as a good thing, however you want to do that. That's your perspective, right? I don't think any of us thought that we would be in this situation in our lives. This is not something we planned for. We're like, hold up, Lord, this wasn't what I planned, right? Do you ever feel like that sometimes? You're like, wait, no. I had something else planned for when I was whatever age that you are now, right? So I think about that. I think about how much our faith is tried and how many just keep going and persevere and keep trying and keep working on being better than you were the day before. You know, what matters most tomorrow is that you're better than you are today. And that you keep doing what you need to do, no matter how long it takes. There are some people that think, well, if it doesn't happen in this time frame, 6 months, a year, whatever, I quit, I give up, I'm done. There are people that will walk into an activity, scan the room, and if they don't see something they want to see, they leave. It wasn't what they expected. That wasn't what they planned for. Instead, they were given something, and we're all given something generally better than what we have planned. I think my plans sometimes are awesome. Okay? I think different goals I set, great. But most of the time, it doesn't end up that way. Most of the time, it ends up very much different, but very much better than what I had planned. And I am grateful for that. I can tell you, when I became single 12 years ago, I never would have thought I'd been doing this. You know, a webinar on Sunday nights with single adults and whatever. That wasn't my personality. It wasn't who I was at the time. And I'm loving the journey that I've been on, and I'm loving the woman I've become, and I will continue to work on being better, because I am so far from perfect. But I love the fact that you guys are all in my life, and that we're friends, and that we're on this journey together. It is just amazing and just awesome to me. So when we talk about the topics we do tonight and throughout the weeks that we're together, I want you to think about that, and think about how you're not going to know the end from the beginning. You may have your nice little list, right, that we've been making for the last couple of weeks that we've talked about. You're thinking, all right, Lord, here's what I'm looking for. And you're going to pray over it. And you're like, I'm going to be that too, right? I got it. But the Lord may have something in store for you that looks different and that feels different and that isn't quite what you expected. And if you will allow that into your life, even though it's different than what you had planned, you may find a greater blessing. You may also find a way that that person comes into your life is better than what you had expected. So I love the fact that I get to learn something from different people that I have friendships with and that I have relationships with. I love that. Now, does the relationship always end the way that I think it will? No. most of the time not. But as we go on, we just stay close to the Lord and we go through that trial of faith. And so I want you tonight to keep an open mind as we're going to be talking about a few things that I feel like are important to talk about. Now, we are going to be spending August talking about the other 4 of those 5 things that are important that we need to agree on to have a long-term relationship, marriage with somebody, right? Oh, wait, hold on. I got somebody on 2 different devices. I need whoever, if you're on 2 different devices, I need you to mute one of them at least. Okay, good. Awesome. Otherwise, you're going to get feedback. There's somebody getting feedback here. I don't know where that's coming from. Anyway. Oh, now I've got an echo. Okay. So, oh, good. Now it's gone. So tonight we're going to be talking about a couple of things. We're going to talk about the color code, which is awesome. And then we're also going to be talking about, Heidi, I'm going to need to mute you, honey.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. All right. We're going to be talking about the color code personality test. It's just another personality test. I think a couple months ago we talked about the strengths finder, right? Where we find out what our strengths are. And then we want to focus on what our strengths are versus what our weaknesses are. And then tonight we're going to be talking about color code and what that can mean in relationships. And then also we're going to be talking about emotional connections and emotional or energy vampires. Okay, so we're gonna weave those in a little bit. So bear with me, and hopefully it all made sense in my mind when I had this. So let's hope it all comes together like I had hoped and like I'd planned. But who knows? It might end up even better, but different than I had expected. Right? We'll see. We'll see. So first of all, I want to define the the emotional connections and then the emotional vampires. So that everybody knows what I'm talking about. I want us all on the same page there. And for some reason, I've got something going on with my computer. My computer's been glitching, so bear with me if, anything goes out on me tonight. But so emotional connections, Emotional connections are when you meet somebody and you kind of just feel like it's a natural flow with conversation. You kind of feel soul to soul, like you've known that person a long time. I have friends that are that way. I call them my soul sisters, right? They're like people we just connect over whatever, and it's just easy, and it's just like, oh, you're just a part of who I am kind of thing, and you get what I'm thinking, and kind of on the same wavelength with our belief system and our perspectives and that kind of thing, and we connect on an emotional level. Okay. The other thing is, oh wait, I don't want to do that. Okay. The other thing is the emotional vampire or the energy vampire. And that's basically different people that you're around that after you're around them a little bit, you may feel like the life just got sucked out of you. Like it's just exhausting to be around them. Okay. And we're going to be talking about what that looks like and what that feels like and how you can recognize it, and also how we can communicate with them if needed in a way that's healthy and positive, and and you can still work with them kind of thing if needed, like if they're a family member. So first of all, let's talk about the color code. Color code is a personality test. I don't even remember the name of the people that put it out. And I was introduced to this, oh man, probably about 15 or 20 years ago now. The relief study president that I worked with at the time, she her and her husband were big into it, and they would go around and they would teach people about it. And like she would have us all as really study presidency to take the color code so we could know how to work together well. And she would even do classes about it. I mean, it was just a big deal. Well, it was really good for me to learn that about my children, because I was able then to interact with them in a much different, much better way and accept some of the things that I thought, oh, they're driving me crazy with this. I got to get through to them. And realizing that was just part of who they were innately. So when you take the color code test, it's one where it goes based on what you are inherently from childhood kind of thing. The character code is more based on who you are now after your experiences. So however you took it is fine. It doesn't matter. I'm just letting you know the difference. Would any of you like to share, or would you put in the chat box, something like that, what your color is after taking the test? And then we're going to talk about this a little bit. So people who are reds are more motivated by leadership, by power. Those are generally the people that lead companies. Those are generally the people that can head up things, that can coordinate things, or whatever. Now, there's a negative side there's a positive and negative to each color, okay? So that's more the positive side. The negative side is that they can be very controlling, they can be very demanding, they can be very unfeeling. They can come across, more abrupt because they're about, power and getting things done, okay? And then we have the blues. And the blues are motivated by relationships, by that connection, by whatever it takes to make that relationship work, they're going to do it, okay? They are ones, sorry, I just saw Pat's comment, and I was like, I could have told him that one. Anyway, so when it comes to blues, they're very motivated by relationships. They're very invested in relationships. They're more sensitive. They're very emotional, or not very. They're usually more emotional, but they're more connected with people. They're more people, right? The white personality is more those. Oh, and the negative side of blues is that they can be more codependent. They can end up more. Doing more for somebody else and not getting a lot in return in a relationship, okay? That's one of them. There's others. They can also, on the negative side, they can be very manipulative at times as well. But generally, as we age, we tend to gravitate more toward the positive side of things, just so you know. Or not even as we age. There's some people, depending on your relationships and your family life and your perspectives, either way. Okay. White personalities are more peacemakers. They are the ones that no matter what they have to do, they're going to keep the peace. No matter what sacrifices they got to make, no matter what they got to give up, they are going to keep the peace. They are the ones that, though, are also procrastinators. They're very indecisive people. They're not very committing to things. They take a long time to make a decision or to make a commitment on something. They can, on the negative side, they can be a little lazy. They can be very passive. They can also build up resentment, like if they're in a relationship with a red person who's very powered, very driven, and very whatever, and then they do whatever to keep the peace, but then after a while they could grow that resentment, but they're not very good with communication. Because, they're peacemakers and they don't want to do anything that's confrontational. They are very, very non-confrontational people, okay? The yellows are more people that they're motivated by fun. It doesn't matter who they're with, what they're doing, whatever, as long as it's fun. That's what they're motivated by, okay? Now, yellows aren't very driven people. All they're about is having fun. They're like, yeah, I got to go to work, but then I'm going to go have fun, right? They're also the ones that don't generally keep up with a lot of technical, logical type stuff, because they're out there four-wheeling and skydiving and whatever. They're all about thrills and just having fun. Whatever fun is to them, that's what fun is. It's so funny. I had when we were doing this with my Relief Society president years ago, there was another counselor there that was like, that she was saying, there were two yellows that got married. And she goes, I don't know how they're going to do it, because they're not really good at responsibility and taking care of the checkbook and taking care of the bills and whatever. He goes, but somehow they made it work. I don't know how they made it work, but they made it work, right? So that's interesting. I saw Heidi's comment. I am from childhood, from the birth thing, because I think Sylvia had a question about why from childhood. When they do the test, they ask you to base all the questions by how you were as a kid. I don't know why they do it that way. I just know that they do. So when I took it 15, 20 years ago, I was blue. I was so blue. I was just bluer than blue, 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 blue. I was all about my relationships, all about making sure my husband was happy, making sure my kids were happy, just so connected and just thriving off of those relationships, right? My friends and everything. It was just like, had to have those relationships. As I've gotten older and gone through different experiences, I've now become what they call a blue-red. There is a combo called a blue-red. And when reading about that, I thought, okay, yeah, that's kind of me. So I'm really good at leading. I think I've gotten better at leading through the years, and I've still got more I can improve on. But I do good. I mean, I've had a lot of experiences with leading groups and whatever, so I'm good with that. And I'm good with, I've run my own company and that kind of thing. So that's awesome. But the red-blue combo, which means it's kind of tied with red-blue as the character. And what that is I'm all about power, and I'm very driven, and I'm very whatever, but then I feel guilty when I step on toes or when I hurt somebody. Oh, the guilt pierces. It hurts. It hurts me almost as much as it hurts them when I hurt somebody. So I'm all about, if I just feel like I hurt somebody's feelings, I'm going to be following up with them afterwards. Are we okay? I didn't mean to hurt you. That's not what I meant. Whatever, right? So, but when in reading the book, The Color Code, it says the red-blue personality is the hardest one to live with themselves, and I'm like, amen, because it is one where blues tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves, and reds are more perfectionist, and that sort of thing. So it was like a battle almost with trying to do that. I've made peace with it now, and I'm good with it now. Don't get me wrong, but 15 years ago, that was a bit of a challenge for me to try to figure out where I was going to create that balance, that I wasn't stepping on toes all over the time, all the time. And I was still keeping those connections that I wanted with people, but then still being able to lead, in a healthy way and not in a controlling way or, do this or else kind of thing. So, okay, Kelly says, how can it change if you answer the questions about you or as a child? So there's a character code. And with a character code, they ask a few different questions on their test about how they are, how you are now. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. But so I am a red-blue. That's what I am. But I think I'm 1 point above with the blue, and then the very close second with the red. And my yellow is like 2%. So I joke with people. I'm like, I like to have fun. I just need to plan it. Let me plan my fun. So I feel like I'm drawn to more people who are more yellow or are more blue, because then you've got that connection there, and then the yellows bring out the fun. And I love being able to give up the seriousness for a little bit and just go have fun. But then I feel like, okay, but now I got to go back to, reality for a little bit, right? Because I can't just live in the fun all the time. That's not who I am. But that is something, though, that I have felt. So when it comes to relationships, in the book, The Color Code, it talks about different colors that tend to complement each other. Now, this does not mean that there's one color that's really good with another color and they'll just be blissfully, happily married forever. Because even if two blues were to marry each other, they could still have issues later down the road, right? There's no perfect combo because we do have to take into consideration the different perspectives and the different life experiences and the different values that people place on things. Sorry, my intro is lasting a little longer than usual. I'm opening this up. You guys can butt in anytime. Come on, add in your comments. But when it comes to the relationships, red and white relationships are more like fire and ice. And we know they don't tend to mix as well, right? But the Relief Study president that I worked with, she was a white personality and her husband was a red personality, and they worked beautifully together. They were quite amazing. He was able to bring out in her best qualities, and she was able to do that for him. So their fire and ice mixed really well. Now, she would jokingly make other comments about how he couldn't make it without her, you know, if she had left early. Sadly, about 2 or 3 years later, she did pass away, and he was kind of lost without her, and it was kind of sad. But he has since remarried and very happy with the woman that he's with now. But it was really something to me how they knew each other, which was awesome. And I think that's really, really part of creating a healthy relationship is understanding your personality, understanding the other person's personality, knowing what their strengths are and what their limitations are, and accepting that, right? If you don't want to be with somebody who's driven, who's leadership oriented, who's whatever, then, and you're a yellow and you're just not that way and you feel like you might clash with that, then either you work that out and you come to some compromises, or that's not going to work long term, right? So blues tend to be a healthy blue tends to be the one that can make a relationship work really well with anybody. But again, they're motivated by relationships. So you put two blues in there that are healthy in their perspective and in their relationships and in their personality traits, they can make a great marriage. And those are the ones that we look at and go, oh, they've been married for 50 years and they're still in love with each other, right? Those are the ones that everybody thinks they're living for, but they don't realize that some of those people might be a blue and a white personality or red and white personality. My friend Miriam and Johnny Sims that I've been talking about, they were married, I think, for at least 50 years before she passed away. They were married for a very long time either way before she passed away. It was a very long time. And they were happily married. They had a great family. They had a great family life. They were close to their kids. It was awesome. They made red and white work because they understood each other and they made sure they understood each other and they worked well together. So just so you know, it's always great to understand where everybody's coming from and what their motivations are, what they're motivated by, what drives them, what makes them tick. Although yellows aren't very driven people, but still, what makes them tick, you know? So, let's see, a few comments here. Yeah, Pat Hoffman. I'm so yellow that even my blues are yellow. Yep. I know Pat, he's yellow. Loves to have fun. See, and Fred is blue, but been operating as red most of his life because he's owned companies. And that's probably more character red on that one. And a lot of women, the majority of women, I won't say the majority, but there's a lot of women that tend to be more blue because a lot of us are more nurturing. We're more about our relationships and that type of thing. So,
Yes.
So yeah.
Makes sense.
Any comments on that? Any aha moments? Any, oh, wow, that makes sense, or yeah, I believe that, or whatever. Anyone?
I was just absolutely shocked. I mean, it almost scared. It scared me when I realized when I got my color and then I read my color. When I saw the blue, and it really made a lot of sense. It really did make a lot of sense to who I am and how I operate, and what works for me and what ticks. And it just, I was just absolutely blown away that how accurate it was. It was very eye-opening. So I'm really excited to talk about all of this. This is awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, isn't it something when you read that description and you're like, oh my goodness, how does this know this, right? And Mitzi says, I'm red and don't totally agree with my results. There you go. Love it. Love it. Oh, I love you, Mitzi.
I don't agree with her results either.
Right. What are your results, Kelly?
No, I said I don't agree with Mitzi's results either. She's not going to say it out loud, but
Mitzi's really good at taking charge of things, though. I know Mitzi.
But I'm not motivated by power though.
No. I know that. But when you go into a group,
is different. Yeah.
Mitzi, how do you do when you're in a group, say a single adult event, and there doesn't seem to be anybody in charge, and they're just kind of going, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? What do you do?
I'm gonna do something.
You're going to do something, right? You're going to be like, wait, guys, we're not going to sit around and waste our time trying to figure something out. Look, this is, here, let me give you an idea. How about if we go do da-da-da-da-da? Does that sound like you?
Sound like me, da 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 da. Oh, I'm gonna be going.
or let's go do this.
I'm either full speed ahead or no speed ahead.
I was going to say Mitzi's going to say, I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to do this.
That is a red personality. That's somebody that will come in and make sure that there's a plan. That, hey, we're going to go do this, or I'm going to go do this. If you guys want to come along, go right ahead, right? So, sorry, I don't know why it's telling me, but anyway. So it's not like you're like going, woohoo, I want to be president of the United States. That's not what a red is. A red is somebody, though, that can go in and lead a group and take care of things and be responsible and just make it happen. They're more about coming up with a plan more so than they are about, so how does that feel? Let's talk about our feelings.
I mean, a lot of it I agree with. Like, I am a workaholic. I work 6 days a week. So, yeah,
right.
I'm all about working.
And reds are more workaholics, right? There's no other personality trait that would be a workaholic. And I'm not saying that they're not, because there's some that could be, you know. There's some that could work just because they have to and they've got to work those 16-hour days. But a workaholic's more driven by that, right? So,
yeah.
So
I don't always have to be right, but if I know I'm right, I'm going to be right. Yeah.
There you go. Whereas a blue
I know when I'm right.
down. A blue would back down and go, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, so let me just, you know.
No.
Right? There's nothing wrong with being a red. I'm a red. I'm half red. So there's nothing wrong with being a red. Reds are great people. They're awesome people. Okay? And I know, I remember when I took it, I was like, I can't be a red because that's somebody that doesn't make any sense. And I do a lot of da-da-da-da-da. I just fill that in instead of telling you everything I said. So yes, it's not a bad thing. We need red personalities in our world to make things happen. So it's all good. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any other comments? Yeah, Fred.
In business, we used a similar profile analysis for people in business.
Mhm.
And one of the things we have to keep in mind when we do this is that the biggest advantage of this tool is not necessarily about me. It is understanding me, but it's really important to understand you so that I can understand you, Paula,
Right.
and knowing what your profile is, and I can manage my own behavior to match what you need,
Exactly.
be satisfied in the environment you're in. And so that's really the key to it. As a manager, as an upper level manager, I had a profile of all of my managers, and because I could understand them better and I could manage my own behavior to match what they needed. Like you say, like I'm what they call, well, it wouldn't make any a matter on this, high drive, high influence person, which means I'm like that, but I also like to influence people, very low compliant, which means I don't like the rules. If it says no parking here, I'm going to park here anyway.
That's me.
I'll pay the bill. And so in a low, high school. But anyway, and they, keep me out of they used to say they keep me out of the alleys. I had to have some kind of controlling elements. You find this guy in an alley somewhere doing who knows what. But then I think the fact that I have the gospel keeps me from going to jail, probably. I'm not sure. But are doing a lot of other bad things. So the low compliance. But I mean, that's another thing. That the idea of understanding the other person is what the value of this test is. Because when I take these tests, I go, ooh, I don't really want to be like that. And let me try to not be like that.
Right.
That's really not. And we're not all, everything you've heard me say this before, things are not black and white. They never are. And they're not all blue and not all red and all white.
Right.
And so I think to use this tool properly, we can say, okay, Paula, you're a red blue. And if I need to understand what a red blue is, and then I can work with you in whatever environment because I understand you.
Yep.
Now, I'll probably never understand me, but because it changes from time to time. And so, I think that's the value of the tool in a relationship is trying to understand the other person, because that's where they're built up. That's where they're bring them into trying to understand you.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. I really do appreciate that. That is so true. So this is because we have been talking a lot about relationships, and that's also why I wanted to bring this up, because we do want to understand who we are and where we're coming from, but then we also want to understand. We definitely want to understand the other person that we're in a friendship with, that we're in a relationship with, or even our own children. It helped me to understand that my daughter was a white personality. Before I realized her personality, she would procrastinate so much it drove me crazy. She would be very indecisive. Nothing mattered. She didn't have a favorite anything. It didn't matter. No favorite food. I mean, I think I talked her into telling me a favorite color, and I don't even know if she was telling me the favorite color. She was just making up something, But she was just, such a white personality. Well, with my personality, and dealing with her, it was really hard. We were a lot like fire and ice. But I was able to soften when I realized that's just who she is. It's not like a thing where she's trying to get out of stuff or whatever. It's just part of who she is. And so we had a little conversation, and we had a compromise when we both understood this, and she understood where I was coming from, I understood where she was coming from, and we were then able to work out something during her teenage years. So then I gave her more time to accomplish, say, a chore, or if I talked to her about a homework assignment and she was like, well, if I don't do that project, I'll still end up with a B, and I'm okay with that. I had to let that go. She did that all through college. She did the what if calculator. If I don't do this project, I'll still end up with this grade. I'm good with that. Something like that would drive me crazy, but I had to be like, okay, that's who she is, and she's making that work, right? So it helped me in working better with my kids that way, and being able to understand where they were coming from and who they were, because there's also one for parents. So anyway, so I just wanted to put that out there. And then when we talk about emotional connections, when you understand the other person, like Fred was saying, it helps you in forming those connections better because you understand where they're coming from. You understand that that yellow personality isn't necessarily immature. They're just, although they can be, they can come across more immature. Um, and I'm sure a lot of yellow personalities have been accused of that at some point in their life. Am I right? For those of you that are yellows. But it's more that they're just out to have fun. You know, and they still get a job, they still go to work, they still support families if they're men, and or even women that do that too. So I mean, they still do all that. It's just they have to learn it a different way than say a red would or than a white personality would or whatever. And then the white personalities are probably the most patient of all of them because they're the peacemakers. Reds have a lot we can learn from the white personalities, and I've still got some white in me. And my white is I think 4 or 5 numbers down from the red yellow. The red blue. But what I've learned though is in forming those connections with people, when you can kind of figure out where they're coming from and what their motivations are and what their personality traits are, there's a lot more understanding that goes into it. So I look at my friend Miriam and Johnny Sims that I spent a lot of time with and learned from, with that they were red and white. I mean, if you were to read the book, you'd be like, you want to avoid those kind of relationships. But they made it look wonderful. And I had very vulnerable and very personal, I was in their home a lot, conversations with them, and they just adored each other. So yeah, anybody can make it work as long as you understand that. And I hope that makes sense. But in understanding the other person is where those connections come in. That makes sense, I hope.
Yeah. I have something.
Okay.
Okay. On my yellow, it says you must accept playful teasing. And I'm notorious for teasing people and they take me seriously and I'm not serious.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that you may think I'm obnoxious, which I get accused of that, I'm sure, quite a lot. So understanding this about myself, which these are things I already knew about myself, how do you use this now to tell people, hey, and so, like I told you, my standard is, I have a BS in math and a master's in BS. So really I was just born with the BS thing. But so how do I explain it a little bit more tactfully than that?
So there's some positive, there are more positive traits to our color traits than there are negative, right? So even though you come across that way, I know blue personalities are generally very, very accepting of yellows, and yellows generally are too. But any combination will work with that. But how you communicate that with people is having them on the same wavelength of understanding and their connection. You usually don't go into, hey, I'm going to come across obnoxious and whatever, and from the first meeting. You're not going to do that. Generally, you want to just get to know people and just kind of make connections in a way that can be more personal. But does anybody have any other ideas on how to communicate that? Kat,
I'm finding. Oh, sorry. You ready for me?
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, I'm finding that I'm getting a lot of education from these webinars, and I'm really loving them. And we talk about the connectivity and kind of what to do with them once we get them. I've really, over the last week or so, been really digging deep as to how to move forward with that. So you have this great connection with somebody, or even in just the beginning stages of a relationship, that we have to build a foundation and find all of the common grounds that we have with each other. And I just remember praying hardcore about it and getting an answer in the shower. I think it was like Monday or Tuesday. And it's like, Jen, it's all about the construction workers like foundation. You have to make sure you give it plenty of time to cure. You have to put in the work. That master carpenter puts in the right amount of concrete and the right amount of water, or concrete mix and the right amount of water. Not only do they do that, but they put it in a form and they give it a finite period of time to cure over. I think that we can use this color chart as a springboard to getting into those foundation talks, to finding out more about each other, how each of us are, how each of us could potentially fit into each other's lives, what it would look like, what our relationship, how it would be. I'm also finding that when there's great connectivity, it's really hard to want to put in all the work, because you're like, this is a super cool person and I just want to be happy because I finally found this really cool person, but your brain has got to stay on track. And I think finding techniques like Paula is trying to teach us is doing just that, helping us build a firm foundation so that we know that we at least have a solid ground, that we have a chance in a relationship. And I don't know if I got off on that or not, Paula, but I think that, like, it's just relative to me right now that this is so helpful to build relationships, connectivity, all of
Right.
that. It's just kind of all encompassing.
Yep. That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So you do. So Kelly, I don't know if that was helpful to you or not, but you do just kind of bring that in a little bit at a time as you connect with people. Anytime you meet somebody or say on a first date, that is not when you want to, what some people refer to as overshare or dump everything on them at one time. Good, bad, the whatever. You just don't do that. We want to do it a little bit at a time. That's why a lot of times we talk about, first we're going to start off with conversations with the form, the family, occupation, recreation, and our dreams. Forward. Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And we want to talk about that. Just in the beginning stages of the relationship, and just build a foundation of connection, of what you have in common, of whatever, and work it in. Hey, my sense of humor can come across a little obnoxious sometimes, just let's just go with it, kind of thing, or however you want to do it. You're a fun person, so you can do that, and that would come across better from you than it would from me, because that's not me. Does that make sense? Hopefully that helped. Anybody else have any other suggestions or ideas? All right. So there are a lot of people that through the years, or through the time that you've been single, I don't know if you've been single for years or not, but through the time that you've been single, have kind of developed different character traits, different belief systems, different perspectives, different whatever, right? So I want to talk to you a little bit. Let's go into conversation now about emotional or energy vampires, those that tend to just suck life out of you. And I'm going to use the example of one of my children. I'm not even going to tell you who. I got 5 of them, but I've got one of my children. It's not the one I live with, but one of my children every day would come home from school, from work, from whatever, and just say, I'm so tired. This is hard. Work was hard. I just had a bad day, had this going on and this going on, and complaining and judging of the boss or judging the teacher or judging the whatever and criticizing whatever, and talking about how hard his life is and how hard whatever is, and just on and on and on, day after day after day after day. And after a while, I'm just like, dude, I can't deal. he will bring up, do you know what so-and-so did? They did this, 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 and this. Or my boss was crazy today. They expect me to do this, 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 and this. And it's like that all the time. And and it was way before I knew about emotional or energy vampires, but I would just say, you're sucking life out of me. It's like I get around you and have no energy left after. I just can't, not today. I can't listen to it today. And he would come back with, what? I'm not doing anything. I'm like, driving me crazy. I'm like, and I would even try to say, what's something good that happened today? And he couldn't think of anything. And I said, I want you to start thinking of things that are good that are happening in your life, things that you're grateful for. To this day, he still struggles with this. And I don't know why. None of my other kids are that way. The rest of them can find good in whatever, but he struggles. It is just every time I talk to him, it doesn't matter if it's 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, don't matter. I'm so tired. I'm so whatever. My back hurts. My this, whatever. And I'm like, dude, I now have to schedule my time to be around him because it is so hard to be around him. And I'm not the only one that has felt that. Even his siblings have felt that. And yes, he is married. But even his siblings have felt that. And it's just draining. They all tell me, Mom, you have to be in the room if I'm talking to him because, he's very confrontational and he's very red. But he's very just in your face about whatever he believes. And if it's not the way he thinks it should be, then you're just wrong. So anyway, it is a challenge. And so he would be one that's an energy vampire. Thankfully, though, within the last year, I will tell you, even though he's still like that today. I mean, I just talked to him earlier today, and he recognizes some things now, and he is trying to work on some things. He still doesn't recognize everything, but at least he's recognizing something that's way more than we were 10 years ago. So I feel like we're making progress, okay? But it could be the same way. Did any of you watch any videos? I think I sent that out to some of the people. Did any of you watch any videos about emotional vampires to understand what they are or do any research for that?
Yeah, I did. Paula.
Okay. Well, what did you find? What did you learn about that?
I learned the different types that are out there that I wasn't real sure, I wasn't very aware of that. I think I was aware of the different types of people, but I never really considered them emotional vampires. So just a different kind of terminology. But also what I found interesting in a couple of videos that I watched was that they actually provided you a way or some information on how to respond to them. So if you were dealing with a narcissistic energy, vampire personality, then it gave you a way to how to interact with them better in a better way so that they wouldn't have that type of effect on you and wouldn't mess with your energy. So I can't remember all of it because my auditory stuff, but it was just very eye-opening and interesting that to look at them and consider them emotional vampires, that they will emotionally drain you. I don't have a lot of those people in my life, but there are several that I can. There are a couple of people that I come in contact with that I always feel tired after I'm done talking to them, like I'm drained. And so it would put it into perspective, especially being the Relief Society president. That helped a lot.
Right? Yeah. Thank you. Now, this is not saying that if you've had a negative experience or you need to vent a bad day, please vent a bad day. We don't want to hold that in, okay? I'm of the belief that you need to purge, or sometimes I call it vomit, your story a few times after a divorce or a traumatic, like loss of a spouse or something like that, right? Like you need to tell that until it's all out. As if I needed to do that for about 2 years after mine. So we need that. I don't need that now. I don't need to tell. I used to think I needed to tell everybody why I'm single so you understand why I'm single. But no, I don't.
Paula,
You know? Yeah.
I was going to say that I've been in situations where I've had jobs where I've had a coworker like that. And then sometimes you get sucked in with them.
Yep.
And then you're doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes it really bad.
Right.
Because now not only are they sucking it from you, but you're probably sucking it from other people around you.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So Heidi was talking about some of the different personalities or different, they do call them different things, but basically it's somebody, so like for instance, somebody could come in and they're just going to start talking to you about everything about their day, and everything that they want to talk about is just about them and whatever they want to do, and they're just going to keep talking and keep talking and keep talking and keep talking, and you're not going to get a word in edgewise, and when they're done, they're done. If they get done, maybe 2 or 3 hours later, right? And then you're going to be nice and polite, or are you, and just listen to them. I have learned that there are some people that are just talkers, which is awesome, right? I love listening to people talk about different things. We want people to be able to share their lives with us and have a connection with them. But when they are monopolizing and you're just sitting there and you're just doing this, and after a while you get kind of glazed over and whatever, they're talking way too much. My grandmother was that way. My father's mother. Oh, my loves. I don't know if you ever have experienced where maybe in the grocery store, or maybe at church or something, you see somebody and you're like, oh no, I don't want to get stopped by them. So then you're going to take a little detour. Anybody ever experienced that? Sadly, we were that way with my grandmother. My grandmother did have a mental something going on. And she would literally hold my arm and have me sit down by her. Come here, Paula, you're such a big girl. Let me just tell you about, and it was just stuff I didn't even have a clue about. I don't know what she was talking about. And I was trapped having to listen to her. And it was just a bit rough. Now, I love my grandmother, do not get me wrong, but she just was a little off. And it was a challenge having to sit there and listen to her when I was a young child talk about stuff I didn't understand what she was talking about. And, it wasn't like I could just have a conversation with her. Now, a healthy way of doing that would be coming in and maybe you're at a single adult event or a conference or something and you're saying, isn't this an awesome conference? And then see how they respond. You can actually test that person, if you will, if you want to use that word test. See if they're an energy vampire or not, right? They could say something like, yes, this is so cool. I just totally love this. And you could say back, well, what's your favorite part of this so far? And well, I really like this, but I'm really looking forward to this later. How about you? That would be a normal conversation, right? An energy vampire would come in and you could go, hey, isn't this an awesome conference? And they go, yeah, if you like this kind of thing. Right?
Right.
Or they go, I guess. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they could be like, well, can you believe that they had this person for speaker? And can you believe that they ran out of lettuce on the lunch bar? And can you believe that they had blah, 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 blah. And they're just going to complain about everything. As if it's more like a victim mentality. And so they're just going to complain because nothing's going to be good enough. And instead of finding a solution, they're just going to complain. Right? So that can also be another energy or emotional vampire. And just know that if they're going to do that in an experience like that, they'll do that in a relationship. Whereas if they can't see anything good there, they won't see anything good later. you can do that also when people talk about their former relationships, when that relationship was all their fault that it went bad and they did nothing wrong. That is a red flag. Okay? Because no matter what, there's something on both sides there. So just so you know on that one. Another one could be where they come in and they're going to talk about, I've got this health problem and I've got this going on with my life, and oh, woe is me, I've got all the kids all the time, or I've got this, that going on, and I never will make enough money, or I always have some problem after one problem after one problem, instead of finding a solution, or instead of whatever, because we deal with problems and challenges all day long, right? But what is your perspective toward that? Is your perspective, oh, woe is me, I just have such a hard life? Or is it, and I don't mean to offend anybody, okay? But, or is it, well, I have had this challenge to deal with, but I've been praying about it, and here's what I feel like I'm going to do to be able to work through it, right? We all have challenges. So it depends on how your perspective is. And not only that, even if someone were to offer a solution and maybe one of their problems goes away, then they may find something else to replace that with, because some people wear it almost like a badge of honor. Like, look at me, just be so proud of me because, I'm just dealing with such tough things in my life. And it's just going to be my life for the rest of my life. That's like a Debbie Downer. I don't mean, sorry. It's like a downer. I don't mean that against anybody named Debbie. Love you, Debbies. But you know what I mean? It's like just kind of a downer, and they just kind of like, you just kind of feel so, like Tammy was saying, they kind of suck you in with them, and then you just kind of feel like, oh my goodness, this is like awful. So there are some ways that you can, if it's a friend or a coworker or whatever, you can just excuse yourself and let them know, hey, I hate to interrupt you, but I've got to go take care of whatever. If it's a child, I'd recommend offering some pointers. You may or may not get through to them. I can't say I've gotten through to mine. I do know, though, that there is hope. He's married to a woman who is helping bring out more positive in him. He still acts like he's on death's door, so tired all the time and hard life and whatever. But in talking to him, when she's around, he will say more positive things. So there are some good things, and there could be some good things going around. And sometimes something else I've noticed is that your influence around the other person can help them. I just kind of go, yeah, we all have a story. Whenever I'm hearing another single adult that I know is just habitually just downer all the time, I'm like, we all have a story. We're all in the same boat. Isn't it something that we all get to spend this time together at the same time? And that's probably more the red in me coming out, because the blue in me is kind of like, I don't want to get sucked into this, right? I don't want that victim mentality or that criticizing and judging, because we're all at a different place in our journey. None of us are perfect. None of us do things just the right way all the time. We're all figuring it out along the way as we go, and we all have our relationship with the Lord that's individual to us, and we all have our relationships with each other. All right. Anybody else?
I do have a question.
Uh-huh. What's up?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm in a Relief Society presidency and the second counselor. And my president is an emotional vampire. And she's the type where she believes that nobody likes her, that she always finds fault in herself, and she always finds fault in others. And part of the problem that I'm facing is I'm a pretty positive person. I try to be. I'm a blue by nature, but I do pretty much the opposite and make myself red, because I recognize the way that I am, and I make myself jump into the opposite of what my first tendency is. But I have a lot of issues trying to understand how to communicate with somebody like that, because it seems like there's not ever a positive spin that I can put on anything. There's not a way that I can make a suggestion or help them understand that, the world isn't out to get you, but we have a job to do, and we have people to minister to. And it's hard to tell somebody like that you can't be all about yourself in this moment, because we have so many other people we need to pay attention to. So my question is, like, how do we try to communicate with these people when we have to? Like, I can't just turn away and say, oh, I've got something else to do, because I really have to, try to do a good job.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So one of the suggestions is, and this was suggested by a therapist, said that when you approach these people, you can say, you know what, I really love you. I think you're an amazing woman. I really admire this, and this about you. But I have to tell you that when you talk, like when you criticize other people, or when you get kind of down on yourself, or when you whatever, it just kind of drains me. And I'd really like to somehow be able to work through that with you, and so that we can just have a conversation about it and maybe find solutions to it if needed. But because I really enjoy our time together, and I really like working with you, and I really think that we could do some awesome things together in reaching out to our other sisters. How do you feel about that? Would that work if you said something like that to her?
I am definitely going to try it.
I call that the sandwich method. You're going to say something really positive to her about her, okay? Then you're going to address the issue. And then you're going to end with, again, positive and uplifting comments about her. Imagine an Oreo cookie, okay? So the cookie sides are the positives. The cream in the middle is going to be the challenge that you needed to discuss with that person. And try to keep it brief, and try to keep it limited to one or two things. Don't go, here's a long list of things we got to work on. We don't want to do that. Keep it to just one or two things, and just keep it just kind of brief, and mean what you say, right? Like, you're not going to make up some fluff just to fill her head. But whenever you say, I really do admire this, and this about you, make sure you mean it, because she'll be able to tell. And then when she does start coming down on herself, I generally ask things like, why would you say that? Would you say that to your daughter? Some of you, I've had conversations.
I've asked that many times, would you say that to your mom?
Yeah, I generally use daughter. They don't have the same connection with their moms that they do to their daughter, right? Would you say that to one of the young women down the hall? No. Why would you say that to yourself? Would you say that to whomever? No. Why would you say that to yourself? You are not meant to be perfect, is something else I say. Go ahead, Kelly.
I know from experience with one of my children that it's almost impossible to make a suggestion that's going to be accepted. Like, oh, well, maybe if you told them this, or have you thought about trying that? And it was always, I did that, Mom, and it didn't work. Or, that was from the child, but still you have people that constantly, they're throwing their problems at you and you're trying to help them, but they really don't want help with it. So you just kind of sympathize with them, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
don't
know, I
offer solutions.
understand. Yeah.
I don't offer solutions. I just question their thought process. Why would you think that? How is that helpful? Would that, sometimes I've even gone so far as to say, what difference does that make? That's
It's
more confrontational, but
it's kind of like the difference that they say it's between men and women is that you know, men are going to jump in and fix it, and women don't want you to jump in and fix it. They just want you to listen to how bad it is to begin with, or whatever. So it's kind of that same idea as the people that are those vampire suckers, you know, emotional vampires, don't want you to fix them. They just want you to just listen and listen and listen to them. So
right, yeah. So so yeah, right. So I generally, whenever she comes down on herself, ask her, why would you think that?
I have an experience,
Yeah.
Paula.
Go ahead.
So I don't have anybody like that in my Relief Study presidency, but I have a sister like that, and being the Relief Study president, I come in contact with her a lot. And the best thing that I've learned to do is, and I've learned this from therapy, so, you know, going and get my own help, the victim martyr role that they like to play. And I used to play it too. I didn't know that that's what I was doing. But I was taught to do that, and that's how I used to work, but I don't work at that anymore. But to put a bubble around yourself, a layer, just imagine a bubble of protection around you while you interact with these people, and to keep yourself safe, so that when they're trying to engage and get your energy, that it just bounces off and goes back to them. I have to do that with this sister, and I also cannot engage with her when she starts that process of, poor me, I'm a horrible person, I don't deserve anything, I suck, everything about my life is horrible. I don't acknowledge it. I don't feed into it. And so when you're not feeding the energy, they stop. And so that was the best, that helped me, and that worked for me with this sister. I'm not saying it would work for everyone, but with this sister, I don't acknowledge the negative self-talk, and I just go on with the conversation of what we're trying to get to, whatever point we're trying to make. I just don't feed it. And so it seems to lessen, it's not as bad with her when I don't do that. I don't know if that's helpful, but just wanted to share that.
Right. And then whenever you hear her criticizing somebody else, you can say, you know what, we don't know where they're coming from. And I'd really rather not talk about them and a lot like that or that way, because everybody's going through struggles and everybody deals with it differently. And generally that helps, because she knows then you're not going to listen to the criticism of that person. So that does help most of the time. Any other suggestions or comments from anybody?
Hey, Paula,
Yes.
at what point, let's say our goal is to relate to someone of the opposite sex, and they don't know anything about the colors of our personality.
Right.
How do we know? How do I know if you're a blue or a red or a green or a yellow? And I walk up to you.
I think it kind
How
of
do I
goes
do?
back,
How do
right. I think it kind of goes back to what Jennifer was talking about earlier and laying the foundation and bringing up that conversation in the get to know you phase. Wouldn't do it initially, but I have brought it up, you know, after I've been talking to somebody, say for a month. I've gone, hey, have you ever taken the color code test? I'd love to see where you're at with that. You know, if we're already making a connection of some kind, generally I'll bring it up that way. Because wouldn't it be fun if we just knew what each other was, kind of thing. That's generally what I do, to bring that up. Pro and a con, you guys might have a better way of doing that. Please suggest it if you do, because I'd love a better way. Mitzi says she interviewed for a scholarship at work and was asked that question. So those of you that haven't taken the test, you can go to colorcode.com and just take the test. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on
Paula,
animal?
I was asked like about spirit animal.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why I posted the question and want to know, and my result when I took a quiz was that I was a shark.
Okay.
And then when I asked one of the physicians what their personality was, he said I was an otter because I was always busy. And so I said, how would you relate that to your color? And so
Right.
Fred was asking, and that's why I was saying it was a question that was asked at work.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A lot of different employers are using it. You're using
Personality,
different
different
tests.
personality you have. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they just want to kind of know where you're coming from, and they don't really know you from Adam. So, it helps to know something about your personality. That's awesome. That's cool. All right. Any other? Yeah, Jennifer?
Well, I was just going to make the point that when you're first getting to know people and in that whole foundation building thing, there's just tons and tons of layers. So you don't just like sit down on your Ford and like fly through the questions. It takes like about 1,000 sweeps of going through that over and over and over and over again, and just finding out something a little bit deeper. So you can talk 4 stories to death, and each layer you get just a little bit more from that. And I think that tends to be a more authentic way of learning about somebody. And then you're just not, like you were saying in the beginning, with this just whole dump. So this happened and that's too much. But if you hit that, the first sweep through is I'm divorced. The second sweep could be I've been divorced for this long. The third sweep could be, this was one thing that went down in our relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like, depending on your comfort level with that person, I just think there has to be so many sweeps as we're going through, and that's going to build your layers of foundation for you. And if you keep the connectivity as you're building these layers, you're going to have one heck of a foundation, and the relationship's going to work.
Yep. Awesome. So what suggestions do you guys have to form healthy emotional connections?
Listen.
That's awesome. But you also need to have conversations, so you're not just going, it's not just always one-sided, right? Yeah.
Well, if you listen too much and keep asking questions, somebody feels like you're there being interrogated.
Right.
You have to share your things, and
Yep.
most of us don't have any trouble talking about ourselves. But probably just the issue is quit talking about yourself and listen to what they have to say. Not ready to, oh yeah, I did that too, or here's my side of that story. So it's it's a delicate balance, and it doesn't necessarily come naturally initially, and maybe later on it might. I remember I took a what do you call it, active listening class or something like that, and so I felt like I was reading from a script as I would talk, practice and talk to people, and then it becomes a natural. You begin to blend that into your personality as to how to ask questions and how to time your answers, and it becomes a natural. It's a skill. I mean, we're not automatically great. It takes work.
Amen.
And I never got there yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. And for those of you that feel like getting to know people is kind of a strain, or you really don't know how to do that, I'd recommend the book, if you haven't heard of it already, by Dale Carnegie, called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's been around for like 50 years, but it's a great book, and it's amazing to me how brilliantly that was written and how much it still applies today, and just different things you can do to get to know somebody and have a conversation with them. So, all right, that's awesome, Fred. Thank you. Anybody else have any other suggestions or anything else you'd like to add for emotional connections? How do we go about forming healthy emotional connections without crossing boundaries, with building a strong foundation. Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Paula, say that again.
Okay, so how do we make those emotional connections in a healthy way without overstepping boundaries while still building that firm foundation that you were talking about earlier?
I think the only way that you're going to build a foundation is if there is mutual connectivity, because I think any other way is not organic, and it's going to be forced, and then it's going to come across as you're in a job interview or you're finding answers to a question. So I think that once you realize that there's not that natural connectivity there, you can get to know those people, but you're likely not going to end up in a relationship with those people.
Okay.
My personal opinion.
Okay. No, that's great input. All right. So natural connection. And what did that feel like, or how would we recognize that? Put you on the spot again, Jennifer.
Easy to talk to. Like as you've talked about your soul sisters, I would feel like it would be the same as well as with a man, that you feel a connection, you feel at ease talking with them, and you have this connection where you can talk and you don't feel nervous necessarily.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get over the nervous feeling of being around a man that I'm interested in. Initially, I don't even know. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. We'll see.
I don't think you're doing it wrong, Paula. I think you've just been around the wrong people. Like, because I have been connected to people on a very high level, and it's still not work out. But we've talked about all of these things until we have found that there just is not an overwhelming connection anymore. Like, you can get to a certain point. I dated a guy for 10 months that I felt like I had great connectivity to, but he couldn't give me everything that I needed. So I had to end the relationship, or we had to end the relationship. Or you get a month or two in and you get to a point where, okay, I'm seeing things that are no longer. Like, that initial connection can be there, like that sister was just saying, it's that feeling comfortable. If that comfort starts to go away and you feel like you're having to work at it, like truly work at it, and it's no longer organic, I think you need to evaluate that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. I love how I learn from you guys too. You guys are awesome. All right. So in forming emotional connections, or the bonds, it is something where it can feel natural. I think when I have my soul sisters, for me, it's a little more comfortable to be friends with a woman than it is with some men. Not all men. I mean, I've got lots of male friends. But it's easier for me to go into, say, even a dating relationship with the attitude of, I don't care how it ends up. Not that I don't care, but in a way of, I'm going to be me no matter what. I'm not going to be trying to do this, that, and the other to impress them. I'm not going to try to put on airs. I'm not going to try to be something I'm not. I'm not going to do something different than I would normally do, or say something different that I wouldn't normally say. Does that make sense? So when I say I go into it with a whole, I don't care how it ends up, it's more like a thing of, I'm going to be me, and if we connect, great. If not, that's okay. I was who I am. So then there's no surprises later.
That's right, Paula. Me too. Yeah, Paula. I'm with you.
Well,
Don't be fake.
I think if you start off not being genuine, if either of you start off not being genuine, you're doomed. So if you can't go in and be comfortable around each other, being just yourself, you shouldn't be together.
Don't be fake.
Right.
Be real.
Yep. And then part of me too feels like I don't have the energy to be anything else, to do anything else, It's like, hello, you just take me as I am, because here I am, right? And I don't really mean I don't have the energy. I just mean like I don't want to put in that extra whatever trying to be something I'm not. So that's more what I mean by that is.
We ain't got time. We ain't got
What?
time to waste, Paula. We ain't got time to waste.
I know I got time to wait.
We've already been there, done that. We've been there, done that. It's time to move on.
Did I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, think about what you said a few minutes ago, Paula. You get nervous, right? You get nervous around a new person, and if you're attracted to somebody, you get a little nervous. And but some days I'm a 4. Some days I'm a 10. You know, some days the wind blows right through my bones. Whatever, you know. Y'all know Paul. I said, Paul Denver, not John Denver. It's okay. Anyway, but I mean, you know, if I walk up to a new person and I'm in the dumps, hey, hi Paula, I'm Fred, and I suck today. But other than that, I'm pretty good. You know, you're gonna go, get lost, man. So I think we do have to put our best foot forward. And some days you have to fake it a little bit and be positive when we don't really feel like it initially. And then, of course, you can let your hair down later. But, I mean, I agree. You don't come off as whatever, something you're really not. You want to be the person that you really believe you should be or want to be, or believe this is here's my best. Here's Fred, and this is the best me, and I'm whatever I think I am is the best I am. I think you still have to do that because your first impression is going to be one of the most lasting impressions.
And we still love you, Fred.
Here's my thing.
What?
So we still love you, Fred.
Kelly says Fred being devil's advocate. It's all good, Fred.
But Fred, for me, like I want to respond to that because I feel like that there's a way when you're having a bad day or whatever that you can still go and talk to somebody and you're not being fake if you are making yourself be a little bit more upbeat to match where your normal is. It's when you're going over the top to just create this facade to get somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if you are, I probably shouldn't do examples, but y'all know me, I'm crazy. But the whole thing is like on your first date, if you bring somebody flowers, then somebody's going to be feeling like, okay, that's going to be that is part of their personality. That's just using one example. And then, you know, you never do that again. Was that fake or was that genuine? I think we just have to make sure that whatever we're doing in relationships, we are being genuine. Everybody has bad days for sure, but we just want to be our best self every day. We've got highs and lows throughout, but we're just trying to be our best selves all the time. Not fake selves, but best selves.
Awesome. All right. Cool. I hope that this has helped tonight. I know we've kind of been a little bit over different directions in bringing this back around. But I hope that this was helpful tonight. If you guys have any other comments or questions, let me know. But anybody else want to say anything else before we close out tonight?
I love it, y'all.
I love you too. Thank you so much. You guys are so awesome. I really appreciate you so much.
8-second hug. 8-second hug.
There you go.
Love you, Paula. Thanks.
All righty. Good night. Talk to you later. Thanks for sharing Sunday evening with me. Talk to you later.